World of Warcraft. It's been around for 13 years, and since the initial launch in 2004, there have been many things that have been revamped to try and make the overall experience more streamlined, if you will. The result is that the difference between the original game and the more modern versions is night and day. They're almost so far apart that they're starting to feel like two completely different games, and while I was making my Vanillagaming review, I was once again greeted by many things that made WoW Vanilla, well, WoW Vanilla. And today I'll be talking about some of those features. Before I start off, I'd just like to point out that I'm not going to focus on the more obvious features like the difficulty of leveling a character, the 25-man raid, since all of those features have been talked about over and over again. Today I'll be focusing on some lesser known features that really caught my eye on how different they are in vanilla compared to the more modern versions of WoW. So without further ado, let's get started. Mailing items was quite a hassle back in the day. First off, you could not send multiple items in one mail. If you wanted to send a bunch of items to an alt or a friend, you had to send each item individually. And you better click and drag those items into the mailbox, cause if you right click, you end up using that item yourself. Ah, damn it. Speaking of sending items individually, it was the same for the auction house. No option to select how many stacks you wanted to put on there and how many items, and once again you had to click and drag. It didn't even remember the price for identical items, so you had to put in the bid and buyout price every single time you reposted a similar item. One more thing regarding the auction house is that back in vanilla the auction houses in the capital cities weren't linked, so the Horde and the Alliance had their own economy, so to say. Apart from one auction house that was in Gadgetsan, which was a neutral kind of auction house where both the Horde and Alliance could put up auctions and try to buy or sell stuff there. Next up is being outside and not being able to mount up because WoW is telling you you're not outside. Oh yeah, this one was a special kind of head scratcher because on some buildings that were outside the world, you were simply not allowed to use your mount there. The funny thing is that even though I can't mount here, I can use my mount on this almost identical structure that's in the same area. But no, you can mount here, but not there, cause you need to be outside. Blizzard was trolling us before trolling was invented. Then we have individual spell ranks. So each time you gain 2 levels, you'd go back to your class trainer, you know, when they were still relevant, and you'd buy a higher rank spell. After you bought it though, it didn't automatically update your Frostbolt to the highest rank. No, you had to open your spellbook, look up every single spell you trained, and then click and drag the highest rank to your action bars. Oh yeah, that's how we did it in vanilla. So now let's talk about collectibles. Notice how things you have to collect have giant light shows in modern WoW? Well, in vanilla WoW, there was nothing like that going on, so you actually had to look very closely at your computer monitor and try to spot the items you were looking for. It was a tedious game of waving your mouse cursor around until you saw that gear symbol and went, ah, there it is. Time for some class related things. Warlocks used to be able to collect soul shards that were needed for some spells like Soulfire and to summon pets. In order to get these, you had to use Drain Soul on a target, and when they were killed when you were channeling it, you got 1 shard. The problem was that when you logged out for longer than 50 minutes, all those shards you farmed were gone. So you'd log in thinking you're topped up on shards, but then realizing they're all gone, and you're back to filling up your bags again with more shards. Those shards, by the way, were one of the reasons why Warlocks got dibs on Onyxia backpacks back in the day, and I can see why. Oh, by the way, the ritual of summoning, that was just for one person. So if you were in a raid with 40 people and you were the only warlock, well, good luck taking a long ass time to summon all those people there. Same applied to classes like the mages, by the way. You better not log out for longer than 50 minutes or else all your conjured water and food was gone and you had to start all over again. Another 2 things about mages is that they didn't have a mage table or anything like that, so again you had to individually make water for each member of your party that required this. One more thing worth noting is that back in vanilla the max rank of conjuring water was not available at your trainer. That's right, you actually had to do a quest that would take you to Dire Maul just so you can get your max rank of water. Moving on to buffs, because in modern WoW they are either permanent buffs and people automatically benefit from them as soon as they're in your party and in range with them, or you just have to apply the buff once and the entire raid has it for an hour. Not in vanilla though. Let's take Arcane Intellect for instance. This buff was meant for just single target buffing, and then you had Arcane Brilliance. This was when there were a lot of mana users in your raid, so you wouldn't have to use Arcane Intellect 30 times. Still though, Arcane Brilliance was only good for one party, so it still meant you had to apply that buff 8 times. And the buff itself was very mana expensive, so what ended up happening is before the raid started, mages were basically buffing 2 groups, then sitting down to drink. Then buffing 2 more groups, and then sitting down to drink. Rinse and repeat. Yeah, it was a hassle, and you can imagine this getting very annoying when your raid is wiping multiple times. Now even though this sounds very bad, Paladins had it worse. Their normal buffs lasted 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's it. So if you were doing a 2-hour dungeon with some people and you were using that regular buff, enjoy buffing yourself and your party members for over 100 times. But like mages, they had group buffs too, right? Well, yeah, but they only lasted 15 minutes. So again, if you're in a raid with 40 people, that's 8 groups, and the raid lasts 4 hours and you wipe a few times, well, you do the math. Lots of buffing and lots of reagents being used. Quick addition to the spells. Some of them in vanilla were a lot less mobile compared to more modern expansions like Men Pet or Rain of Fire. Both of these were channeled, so you had to stay put in one place. Also in more modern expansions you had certain spells like Counterspell and Windshear that weren't affected by global cooldown, so you were able to interrupt someone's ability at record speeds. In vanilla, all spells were shared by that global cooldown, making PvP feel a bit sluggish compared to expansions like Wrath of the Lich King, where they really started to introduce global cooldown free spells. Moving on to these stones right here that were outside every single dungeon. They were called meaning stones, and back in vanilla, they didn't do anything. You couldn't use them to summon the rest of your party. They were just there for your party to gather and, well, that's it. Oh, by the way, there was no dungeon finder, so unless you had a warlock to summon people, everyone had to fly there all by themselves. Good times, I tell you. Up next we're going to talk about the map. This right here is the entire map back in vanilla, and even though it was admittedly quite large when it came out, there were still a lot of zones and areas unused. See those islands in the middle of the Great Sea? There's nothing there. As well as the islands north of the Maelstrom. If we go to the Eastern Kingdoms, we have the most northern part where there was nothing, which turned out to be the Blood Elf starting zone in the Burning Crusade. The shoreline right next to Loch Modan, which was later revamped to be the Twilight Highlands in Cataclysm. This zone south of Silverpine Forest, which became the Worgen starting zone, once again in Cataclysm. An unused patch of land next to the Burning Steppes, an unused patch of land in between Dun Morrow and Elwyn Forest, and last but not least Mount Hyjal on Kalendor, which was used as an entire raid in Burning Crusade and then later revamped to be the first leveling zone of the Cataclysm expansion. Many areas in the map are now filled out, including tons of other stuff like Pandaria, Northrend, Outlands and so on, but back in the day I couldn't help but look at all those unused zones and wonder, what's there? And the last thing I want to talk about is the absence of dual spec. This is one of the things I really like of the more modern version of WoW. I used to be a druid in retail vanilla, and the difference between each druid spec was night and day. So naturally, if you wanted to use some feral gear in battlegrounds, you wanted to go full on feral. If you wanted to use that balance gear, you went balance, and having to dish out a max of 50 gold per respec was just a pain in the ass. It meant it was super expensive to have fun in battlegrounds with a PvP spec, and then later switch to your raiding spec when it was time to raid. Not to mention wanting to do a dungeon, not being able to find a tank, and having the gear to be able to tank, but just not wanting to spend 50 gold twice just to be able to fill the tanking role for that particular group. In more modern expansions, it's as easy as tapping a button to go to your other spec, equip your other gear, and you're ready to rock. It was one of those features I really liked about the more modern expansions without making the game too much of a face roll, and I wish they implemented this right from the start. Well, there you have it folks, some of the things that were either completely missing in Vanilla WoW or have been changed drastically over the years. I know I left a bunch of things out, but to be fair, if I talked about all of them, this video would be getting way too long. I'll end this video with a few questions for you guys. What was the most noticeable change for you throughout all the expansions of World of Warcraft? And out of all those changes, which were the ones you loved the most? Let me know in the comment section below. And that is going to do it for today. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.